If a Livyatan whale were thrown into the modern Pacific Ocean, could it reclaim its position at the top of the ecological niche? At this moment, a prehistoric behemoth that disappeared 13 million years ago is quietly born. This is a Livyatan whale. Right at birth, its body length is already 8 meters, and it weighs 2 tons, roughly the size of a fully loaded light truck. Even as a calf, it already stands at the upper tier of the food chain. This is enough to prove the power of the Livyatan family. But this does not mean it is safe. The modern ocean is too cold. 13 million years ago, the water temperature of tropical oceans remained above 28 degrees Celsius year-round. Yet now, the water temperature in this area of the Pacific Ocean is only 22 degrees Celsius. For a newborn warm-blooded animal, this 6-degree temperature difference is enough to be fatal. Moreover, the Livyatan whale is a viviparous mammal, just like modern whales. However, their metabolic rate is 5 times that of a modern sperm whale, meaning it needs more energy to maintain its body temperature and grow. If it cannot find food within 24 hours, it will freeze to death in this ocean that its ancestors once ruled. Many people think that the offspring of prehistoric predators require long periods of feeding by their parents. But in reality, right from birth, a Livyatan whale calf possesses complete hunting capabilities. Their teeth can reach up to 15 centimeters in length, with a bite force exceeding 3 tons. A casual bite could easily shatter your large iron gate at home. Its mandible begins to emit low-frequency vibrations. This is the sonar system of the Livyatan whale, which is more primitive than that of modern whales, but more powerful. It can perceive the heartbeat of any creature, over 100 kilograms within a 10-kilometer radius. Very quickly, it captures a signal. A colony of California sea lions is resting in the shallow waters nearby. In its genetic memory, animals of this size are just moving snack boxes. It glides over silently. The body of the Livyatan whale is perfectly streamlined, with a special microstructure on its skin surface that generates almost zero noise in the water. When 50 meters away, its fluke suddenly strikes hard, instantly reaching a speed of 45 kilometers per hour. Before that sea lion can even turn its head, the Livyatan whale opens its saw-like mouth and swallows it whole in one bite. Its sharp teeth are like daggers, piercing right through the sea lion's body. Its double-jointed jaw allows its mouth to open up to 90 degrees. 4 rows of inward curving teeth ensure that once the prey is bitten, there is absolutely no possibility of escape. With this first hearty meal, the warm blood temporarily dispels the cold. It has survived. Half a year later, its body length has already reached 8 meters, weighing 5 tons equivalent to an adult humpback whale. The growth rate of the Livyatan whale is twice that of modern whales. They only need 3 years to reach sexual maturity, whereas modern sperm whales require over 10 years. This was a survival strategy from ancient times. In that peril-filled ocean, the faster you grew, the higher your chances of survival. But in the modern ocean, this advantage has turned into a fatal hunting challenge. It needs to consume 250 kilograms of food every day, which is equivalent to 10 adult sea lions. Yet 13 million years ago, its ancestors only needed to hunt once a day to satisfy their needs. In the oceans of that era, the population of cetaceans was more than 10 times what it is now. But what about now? Since the 20th century, large-scale commercial whaling swept the globe. In just a single century, nearly 2.9 million whales were brutally slaughtered. Today, the total remaining population of cetaceans worldwide is only about 700,000. In most ocean regions, it struggles to find even a single whale exceeding 10 meters. For an apex predator, this is a disgrace. To make matters worse, the prey it can eat has been almost entirely monopolized by killer whales. Sea lions, seals, dolphins, and even small baleen whales are all regular prey for killer whales. Furthermore, killer whale hunting pods span major oceans worldwide, and their hunting efficiency is more than 3 times that of the Livyatan whale. It is just like a beggar holding golden tableware, possessing top-tier hunting gear in vain, yet unable to find anything to eat. At 2 years old, it finally completed a top-tier hunt that truly belonged to a Livyatan whale. That day, it encountered a lost humpback whale calf. It was 10 meters long and weighed 15 tons. This was exactly the favorite prey size of its ancestors. It quietly dove down to a depth of 500 meters, which is a blind spot for the humpback whale's vision. Then, it slowly circled around beneath the humpback whale. The Livyatan whale's low-frequency mandible vibration system was fully activated. It could clearly perceive every single heartbeat and every breath of that humpback whale. 100 meters away, its fluke began to beat slowly, accumulating power. It charged upward fiercely, instantly reaching a speed of 50 kilometers per hour. This was the fastest speed it could burst into. Its bite force instantly reached 15 tons. The upper and lower jaws squeezed instantly like hydraulic pliers. The prey did not even have a chance to struggle for help. The seawater was dyed deep red. This is the peak hunting tactic of the Livyatan whale, ambushing from below, a fatal strike right at the center. No creature could withstand an attack like this. It finally had a truly hearty meal. This feast was enough to sustain its energy needs for a whole week. 3 years later, it finally reached its full physical form. It was 16 meters long and weighed 55 tons, equivalent to 9 adult African elephants. Its bite force reached a staggering 36 tons. This is one of the strongest bite forces ever recorded in Earth's history. Now, it was already the most powerful creature in the modern ocean. No single animal could challenge it alone. Even those small killer whale pods did not dare to attack it easily. Of course, it would not provoke these killer whales either, because over these years, it had witnessed with its own eyes a massive pod of 70 killer whales, hunting a blue whale, something even it was not confident in taking down. Together with killer whales, it became a ruler of this ocean, just like how its ancestors split the world with Megalodon 13 million years ago. But this rule was lonely, and moreover, it quickly encountered its most formidable enemy of this era. Human vessels ran rampant through the oceans. Their propellers could easily slice through a whale's thick skin. Their noise could travel hundreds of kilometers, disrupting the whale's sonar systems and causing them to lose their way. It began to develop a fear of human ships. Whenever it heard the sound of an engine in the distance, it would immediately dive into the deep sea. But it could not hide. Human activities had already penetrated every corner of the ocean. From shallow waters to the deep sea, from the equator to the polar regions, human traces were everywhere. Until one calm night, while it was resting on the ocean surface, it suddenly heard a familiar low-frequency vibration. That was the heartbeat of a whale, and a massive whale at that. It instantly grew excited. It dove underwater and swam toward the direction of the signal. The signal grew stronger and stronger. It could feel that the whale was just a short distance ahead. Its body length was at least 20 meters. This would be a perfect feast. It quietly circled beneath that whale, preparing to launch its most adept ambush. But at the exact split second before it launched the attack, it suddenly realized something was wrong. That whale's heartbeat was far too rhythmic, and it wasn't breathing. Any living whale needs to periodically surface to breathe air. Yet this whale had already stayed underwater for a full hour. It hesitated, but hunger triumphed over reason. It charged upward violently, opening its saw-like mouth to bite into that whale. The sound of teeth colliding with steel echoed through the deep sea. Immense pain instantly surged through its entire body. 3 of its teeth were forcefully snapped right off, and fresh blood gushed out of its mouth. That was not a whale at all. That was a human nuclear submarine. The propeller, like a giant razor, sliced deeply into its abdomen. A 5-meter-long wound extended all the way from its chest to its tail. Its intestines and internal organs spilled out, floating in the seawater. The nuclear submarine did not stop. It quickly vanished into the deep sea. To humans, this was just a minor accident. No one knew they had just harmed the very last Livyatan whale on Earth. Dragging its wounded body, it struggled to swim toward the sea surface. Every single stroke of its fluke brought excruciating pain. A massive blood loss made it feel dizzy and disoriented. It knew it wouldn't live much longer. In the final moments of its life, it seemingly heard a call coming from afar. That was the ocean from 13 million years ago. Its mother was there, its kind was there, and countless prey were there. That was where it truly belonged. It slowly closed its eyes. The last Livyatan whale on Earth was dead. Many people think that if prehistoric creatures traveled to modern times, they would definitely become invincible existences. But in reality, it is almost impossible for them to survive, because evolution never moves toward becoming more powerful. Instead, it moves toward becoming more adaptable. Once the environment undergoes a massive change, even the strongest species will become incredibly vulnerable. Did you hear that? This isn't a ghost howl from a horror movie, but an unyielding roar, echoing from the prehistoric oceans of 240 million years ago. It is Nothosaurus. The name sounds very fantastical, making you think it would look nice. Wrong. This fellow is completely the unlike chimera of the ocean. It features the body of a monitor lizard, drags the long neck of a giraffe, and possesses a snake-like head. If you saw it in reality, you would absolutely be so terrified that you couldn't sleep for a week. Because this fellow's teeth are never retracted into its mouth. They are all fully exposed outside. Imagine a 7-meter-long Komodo dragon, showing rows of outward-turned, bloody teeth, staring dead at you. This scene is scary enough, right? But this is still not the most terrifying part. Not only does Nothosaurus look horrifying, but its offensive power is even more astonishing. Its neck can suddenly elongate like a spring. You might think you are safe because you are far enough away, only to die in its mouth the very next second. So in that era when even dinosaurs hadn't finished evolving, what exactly did it go through to force itself into what it looks like today? All of this has to be traced back to that extinction event in the Permian period. This extinction nearly wiped out Earth's living creatures entirely in one go. At this time, some desperate reptiles chose to give up on land and plunged straight into the ocean. These were the earliest ancestors of the Nothosauroidea order. Why did these little guys want to run into the sea? The reason is very simple. After the Permian extinction, the only remaining survival spaces on land were fought over fiercely. The ocean, instead, became a safe haven. Food was abundant, and there weren't that many natural enemies. So they made a decision that went against their ancestors, going out to sea. But surviving at sea wasn't a simple matter either. You have to know that their limbs were originally meant for crawling on land. They had no gills and didn't know how to swim. Falling into the water made them just like landlubbers. Most importantly, they still had to rely on lungs to breathe. Each time they dove, they could only stay for a short while, before having to desperately surface to gasp for air. Even more headache-inducing was that all the hardware on their bodies had evolved almost entirely based on terrestrial habits. Their original teeth, eyes, and limbs were completely useless in the sea. What could the ancestors of Nothosaurus do? They could only evolve desperately. The first parts to evolve were the limbs. Their toes grew longer and longer, and thick webbing grew between the tips, just like the swim fins we wear when swimming. It could generate massive thrust when paddling through water. Their claws didn't completely degenerate, allowing them to support their bodies in the seabed silt, while also firmly grasping slippery prey. Scientists once discovered in Livyatan, Yunnan, fossilized footprints of Nothosaurus, clearly showing that when their forelimbs paddled through water, traces of touching the seabed mud and sand. This indicates that most of them active in shallow seas 1 to 5 meters deep. They didn't dare to go to the deep sea. Why didn't they dare to go to the deep sea? Because they had to surface periodically to breathe. Shallow seas allowed them to travel back and forth quickly, reducing the risk of ambush by natural enemies. These are all survival wisdoms engraved in their bones. In addition to their limbs, their bodies also changed, growing into a streamlined shape, just like the submarines we usually see. It could reduce resistance in the water, swimming fast and flexibly. They could both chase after fish and quietly ambush prey. Among them, the most successful evolution was its neck, which was longer than a giraffe's. Initially, when nothosaurs just adapted to the ocean, because they couldn't run fast, they could only lie in the mud and sand of shallow seas to ambush. At this time, the advantage of a long neck was demonstrated. It could extend its neck very far, without moving its body. Waiting for small fish and ammonites to swim in front of it, its neck would shoot out with a whoosh, biting them in one mouthful. The whole process took less than 0.1 seconds. Many prey didn't even know until death what kind of thing bit them to death. Here comes the scariest point. This terrifying monster lived in groups. In the past, people thought it was a lone killer, but multiple remains unearthed in Guizhou, the Tongking burial, prove that nothosaurs would hunt in groups, ambushing collectively, and even dividing labor to surround prey. Imagine that scene. A dozen 7-meter-long nothosaurs, buried together in the shallow sea mud and sand, exposing only their eyes and the tips of their noses, like a silent array of deadly reefs. After the school of fish swam into the encirclement, all nothosaurs shot out their necks at the same time. In an instant, the entire sea turned into a slaughterhouse. This kind of tactic in the early Triassic, no creature could crack it. They would even drive their prey, forcing the school of fish into a narrow area, and then harvest them collectively. In other words, nothosaurs were not just individual assassins, but a tactical army. Intelligence combined with patience and explosive power were all maxed out. So nothosaurs dominated the shallow seas for 10 million years. Why did they eventually disappear? Not because they were eaten by stronger creatures, but because their mission was completed. As the Triassic progressed, the oceans regained vitality. Ichthyosaurs and thalattosaurs rose one after another, and the deep-sea ecosystem completely opened up. Large predators became more and more numerous, and shallow seas were no longer safe. However, the structure of nothosaurs was too specialized. They could only stay in shallow seas. When the environment began to change, this extreme specialization became an extreme shackle. But nothosaurs did not go completely extinct. One of their descendants further elongated its neck and strengthened its swimming ability, eventually evolving into true plesiosaurs. Where exactly lay their strength that allowed them to become a star species in the ocean? First, their pectoral girdles became stronger, their pelvises flatter, and their flippers sharper, which was equivalent to upgrading the equipment for their bodies. The pectoral girdles could withstand greater paddling force, and the flippers, like boat oars, were more flexible, allowing them to swim quickly in the deep sea, no longer limited to shallow seas. Besides this, they had many advanced features. Their limb joints became stiff, allowing better exertion of force. The number of phalanges in their hands and feet increased, and the bones of fingers and toes were tightly connected together, just like we wear gloves, making paddling more powerful. Their tails also became shorter, reducing resistance in the water. Some characteristics allowed them to successfully explore the open seas and become true residents of the ocean. However, most plesiosaurs swam relatively slowly. They could only hunt by swimming slowly under the water surface, utilizing their long and flexible necks to quietly extend their heads close to the prey. Catching the opponent off guard, they bit them in one mouthful, just like how we fish, slowly approaching the school of fish, and then suddenly lifting the rod, giving the prey no chance to react. Although they swam slowly, their maneuverability was exceptionally strong. The 4-flipper swimming method allowed them to turn their bodies quickly. Even if the prey wanted to run, they could turn around in time to catch up. And like all plesiosaurs, they were also warm-blooded animals, giving birth to live young, which allowed them to survive in various ocean environments. Scientists discovered through fossils from the late Cretaceous that plesiosaurs had another very special feature. They adopted a K-selection reproductive strategy. Just like modern seabirds, they didn't give birth to many young, but would invest a large amount of parental care in each offspring, carefully tending them as they grew up. This was completely different from other marine reptiles. Those animals mostly cast a wide net, laying many eggs and leaving them unattended, relying entirely on luck to survive. It was precisely the combination of these features that allowed plesiosaurs, after the end Triassic extinction event, to rise rapidly and achieve success. You should know that extinction event wiped out all truly giant ichthyosaurs, vacating a huge living space for plesiosaurs. Only then did they attain their later status as ocean overlords.